heart, listeners, to the BizBlend podcast. And today, in this episode, we are not talking strategy, metrics, or productivity hacks. We are asking deeper questions about the price of performance, the pain beneath perfectionism, and the radical idea that you are the medicine. Now, we exist in a world that profits off our exhaustion. It medicates our disconnection and it glorifies burnout like it's some kind of badge of honor. But what if illness isn't just a breakdown? What if it's a message from your body? What if healing doesn't start in a clinic? It starts in our consciousness. Sounds interesting, right? Well, our guest is Simon Lüthi. He is a former corporate powerhouse turned modern mystic, aka the Rocket Shaman. After a near death encounter with chronic illness and emotional collapse, he walked away from the boardroom and into the unknown. And today he fuses neuroscience, indigenous healing, and executive experience to guide burnt out leaders, seekers, and also survivors back to wholeness. His book, Becoming the Rocket Shaman, it isn't just a memoir, it is a reclamation. And today's conversation, well, it might just shift the way you work, lead, and live. So, with that, Simone, welcome to the BizBlend podcast. And this is something so interesting. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sana. I am so thrilled to be a part of this. Yes.
Uh, Simone, very interesting journey. What a transformation, what a transition. So, if you can please give us a glimpse of that entire moment or maybe the transformation, what motivated you to embark upon this path? Something from the corporate, from the kind of standard template that we are asked to follow. What
Yeah.
happened?
Great question. I would call myself a transmuter. What began as my personal survival story has become a universal operating system and really a mission. So, you think about when chronic illness, cancer, and executive burnout pushed me to the edge of collapse. I didn't just heal, I discovered the neurobiological and energetic principles that govern all transformation. So, I was doing all the things that we are told in the Western world that we should be doing. Hard work. You climb the ladder. You execute somebody else's strategy, and it's about titles and accolades that should drive us forward. And had a very successful career, made it to the C-suite until my body literally gave out. In 2015, I was bedridden with an autoimmune that modern doctors couldn't diagnose. And then in 2020, among the global pandemic, I've also been diagnosed with cancer. And I am here, and I'm an embodied example that you can heal yourself. You can heal your body if you actually tune into the right question. The right question is, why is this happening for me, not to me? I think illness in almost every situation is an invitation to actually look into what's not in coherence or congruence with your life, and take a pause. And so in my case, I guess you could say my body became the laboratory, my recovery became the roadmap. And now my story is becoming a transmission frequency for anyone ready to break free from this exhaustion epidemic plague in our world. And so the book that you mentioned very kindly, thank you, is really a map for the soul. It's not your everyday self-help book, but it is a map that outlines, if I could heal myself, so can you. And has lots of memoirs and stories about my life, infused with practical rituals and examples. And very proud that this is now coming to see the light of day.
Well, that is so, that's such a shift, Simone, because uh, as you mentioned about, we often think that why this illness is happening to me, but you are putting it as why this illness is happening for me, or is illness for me. It's thinking of illness as a teacher. And do you think, Simone, our culture intentionally avoids that kind of wisdom because it's too uncomfortable, or because it's inconvenient for the systems that we are in?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, one of the staggering facts, or two actually, that I would like to share with everyone that's listening. So, one, if you think about with all the advancement in modern technology and science, at least here in the US, life expectancy is the lowest it has been since 1944. So, on average, you're
Mhm.
expected to live just about 72 and a half years. And you think about this for a moment, right? We should be actually in longevity mode. We should get back to living again 120, 150 years if modern medicine is, in fact, the holy grail to all of the things. But that does not seem to be the case. Now, granted, there's a lot of other factors, factory farming and fast food and what we put into our bodies. But let's just kind of entertain that for a second, right? The fact that our life expectancy is actually shorter. And then when you look at what's happening in the world, there's about 1 billion health-related searches each day across generational or conversational AI and search engines. That's a staggering number, meaning that a
Yeah.
lot of people actually have some kind of health issues that modern medicine either doesn't know how to diagnose, or they tried everything, right? Tried the pills, tried the specialists, and still can't get to anywhere. And so that's really what I'm offering up here, that it's time to go back to our roots. I mean, humanity has been alive for thousands of years without, pharmaceuticals and drugs. And so I think that that activation of our innate ability to heal ourselves is I think a question that we should all ask ourselves. How do we get back with that? And and then of course, in my case, having been a leader, I really am empowering the modern leader to kind of get out of this survival mode and get back into peak performance. So I don't know, we could take this conversation in a couple different directions of, we can stay on the healing route, or we can also talk a little bit about, what the modern leader of tomorrow, is meant to be doing. Because I think healthy bodies, healthy minds, and training ourselves again to get back into our intuition is a requirement of anyone that's out there trying to make it work.
Absolutely, and that's the beautiful of it, Simon, because um, this is so relevant from both the perspectives. From a leadership perspective, because now gradually we are redefining workplaces, we are redefining leadership, not only restricted to boardrooms and cabins and numbers and targets and career, but in all aspects of life. And as well, we are trying to get back to basics in terms of healing. You rightly mentioned that if humanity was able to um, not only survive but thrive without the modern advanced pharmaceuticals, why not we go back to basic, especially in terms of longevity? But let's first dive into the leadership aspect, especially the high performance aspect. What does this survival look like, Simon, for someone who's stuck in a high performance role, but they know something deeper is breaking inside?
Yeah, exactly. And most leaders don't realize they're in survival mode, because high functioning survival looks like success from the outside. You're hitting targets, you're closing deals, you're scaling teams, but internally you're what we would call white knuckling through each day. So survival mode in leadership looks like this. You wake up already behind, immediately check your phone, and your cortisol spikes before your feet even hit the floor. And your days are reactive. You're fighting fires, you're managing crisis after crisis, and you're making decisions from fear of losing rather than a vision of creating. And your body, it's just a vehicle carrying your brain to meetings. You push through fatigue with caffeine, through stress with willpower, and through warning signs with denial. And, I lived this for years. So, two separate companies, like I said, high visible leadership roles, and I was dying inside. My nervous system was locked in fight or flight, and I was leading from my wounds, not wisdom. And so maybe it's a good, time to talk a little bit about this coherence and congruence aspect that I mentioned when we started. So coherence is a completely different operating system. You wake up, and before you engage with the world, you engage with yourself. Maybe it's 5 minutes of heart focused breathing. Maybe it's movement. Maybe it's gratitude practice. I love cold plunging in the morning, but you're setting your energetic tone consciously, right? So before you get up and grab the phone, you get into this mode of coherence. Yet there's also this topic of congruence. Are you actually working on your mission? The thing that gets you up in the morning. So when you look at the definition of coherence versus congruence in the context of personal integration and goal setting, so coherence would refer to the consistency and logical connection within a system of goals, while congruence refers to the alignment of those goals with one's values and sense of self. So what I'm trying to communicate really is that, there's a need for coherence that empathizes internal consistency, while congruence emphasizes authenticity and self-determination. So in coherence, getting up in a more state of mind, you respond rather than reacting. When crisis hits, and it will, we all have seen these roles and the world around us, you will feel it. Breathe, find your center, then act from clarity. And your decisions come from an integrated place. So the gut wisdom, heart intelligence, and mental clarity are all aligned. You're playing the long game, not just surviving the quarter, so to speak, to use a terrible American analogy. But what I mean by that is, when you start to get back into your body, and especially now in the rise of AI, we do need to figure out where humans actually fit in, right? Because AI can do a lot of things much better and faster. And I think it is definitely vital that we get to this place of kind of somatic reset in the morning, and then start to develop this new leadership that I call this energetic capital, to stay ahead of the game, but also take care of yourself. And really, that's kind of how
Mhm.
you prevent burnout and disconnection in entrepreneurs.
But all that is, it's easier said than and done. But I completely understand because you have been there, done that. So, uh, if someone, especially in a very highly stressful job or situation right now in their life, or they identify themselves as high performing individual, if they really want to bring that change, where should they start? Because first of all, as you very rightfully mentioned, that for high anybody who's stuck in a high performance role, for them sometimes it really becomes very tricky to even realize that they are burning out, or they are just surviving, they're not able to thrive. That is really scary, because until and unless we identify the problem, we are not able to even look for or accept that we need solutions for this. So how do we start?
Oh my goodness, yeah. You hit the nail on the head. I would say entrepreneurs are particularly susceptible to a unique form of burnout I would call passionate depletion. So we're so identified with our vision, so driven by our mission, so that we literally burn ourselves as fuel for our businesses. We wear these exhaustion as a badge of honor, mistake suffering for dedication. And I've discovered that burnout in entrepreneurs, and maybe even, managers in general, show up in layers. So first there's the physical, like chronic fatigue that coffee can't fix, maybe mysterious pain that moves around the body, insomnia where your mind won't stop strategizing. And then unfortunately, in my case, it was that the immune system may start failing. You catch every bug, wounds heal slowly, inflammation becomes your baseline. And you compound that with emotional symptoms, like you're irritable with the people you love or work with, small setbacks feel catastrophic. So you kind of oscillate between numbness and overwhelm. And that passion that once drove you feels like pressure crushing you.
Yeah.
And, so that's really, I think what's going on. And then what's really insidious is kind of the spiritual disconnection. Like you built this business to create freedom, but you've become its prisoner. You wanted to change the world, but you can't even change your own state. And so again, I was one of that, or I was one of those people that were in that world that I hit the wall hard. Again, I think I mentioned it, bedridden with 45, chronic pain, had anxiety attacks during board meetings, and then cancer with 50. So my body was screaming what mind wouldn't admit. This isn't sustainable. But here's the good news. For me, healing isn't about work-life balance. It's really kind of a myth. It's about work-life integration through energetic coherence. And so you ask me like, what are some practical tips? So maybe that would be a good time to just share, what I've learned. There's really four things that I would think are critical. Firstly, it's a somatic reset. If you think about burnout lives in your body, not just in your mind. So to me, breath work, cold exposure, movement practices, anything that moves you from thinking to feeling. And for me, I just started with 5 minutes of cold plunges and breathing exercises in the morning. So sounds simple, right? It rewired my entire nervous system. So kind of getting into my first routine through the somatic reset was a game changer. Secondly, sacred boundaries, not necessarily time boundaries, like energy boundaries. So learn what fills you up versus what empties you. And, like so many of us go through the day and then you're in the evening exhausted and you don't know why. You just say, oh, hard day. And we then try to numb it with alcohol or with other substance abuse or overeating or whatever, or just, fall asleep on the couch.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very crucial, and I offer this up as a free tool to do an energy audit of yourself. Like check in after every meeting, after every interaction. How am I feeling? Am I feeling, elated, or am I feeling depleted after this interaction? Super important. Thirdly, what I would call integration rituals. So create bridges between doing and being. And I do what I call state shifts. So these are these 90-second energy resets between meetings, like shake your body, breathe deeply, set an intention. It's like clearing your cache, if you will. And otherwise you will be running from meeting to meeting to meeting, right? Super simple, 90 seconds done. And then fourth and lastly, reconnect to purpose. The real raw why that got you started. Strip away the pitch deck language and find the heartbeat of your mission. When you lead from that place, work becomes worship and effort becomes offering. And so I think realizing it that your burnout isn't a failure, it's an invitation to a more sustainable, more powerful way of leading. So the phoenix doesn't just rise despite the ashes, it rises because of them. And that will be my encouragement to everyone out there listening. You know, pause or stop and pause and check in with yourself, and then find the tools for you that work to get you back on track into this coherent and congruent state of being.
Hmm. Some golden takeaways for our listeners. And you also blend neuroscience with indigenous medicine, two worlds that rarely meet. But when they do meet, we have some pretty interesting and wonderful, uh, you know, uh, options and solutions out there. Where do you see them aligning when it comes to healing chronic stress and emotional trauma?
Yeah, it's a great question. Especially I love the word of the epigenetics. I mentioned early on that I would call myself a transmuter. And when you really think of the science of transmutation, so modern neuroscience confirms what ancient wisdom always knew. Our nervous systems are actually programmable. So through polyvagal theory, we understand that healing happens when we shift from a sympathetic overdrive to parasympathetic restoration. So through epigenetics, we know that trauma patterns can be rewritten at the cellular level. And then through this
Mm.
quantum field theory, we recognize that conscious itself shapes reality. So I know this is a very, what I just said, probably for a lot of people is like, wait, what? But to kind of bring it down, what I'm saying is when we can actually recognize that we have a trauma body that we inherited, and we can actually strip ourselves from the old stories. So the maybe the practical example is cancer. You could say, or maybe let's not use cancer. Let's use a heart attack or heart issues. Right, runs in the family. So you could say somebody's mom or father said, "Oh, like high blood pressure runs in the family. You're probably going to get it." The question then is it really genetic? So because your mom, your dad, your grandfather, grandmother had it, it's passed down by genetics, or is it in fact mm, the sense that you're putting the fear of this into your nervous system, and the nervous system starts to pick it up,
Mm.
and then you manifest, I guess, this heart disease into your body. One of my favorite books by Bruce Lipton is called The Biology of Belief. And we now know in neuroscience and a lot of the research that there is actually a lot bigger connection between the heart and the brain and other organs that are not necessarily um, anything that a heart surgeon would explain or would confirm. So in my particular case, my mom would always say, "Oh, cancer runs in the family. We had colon cancer. Go get colonoscopy." And I would say, "Cancer is not my future. Cancer is not my future," because I didn't believe that that was necessarily my story. Well, then I ended up with cancer, and I did all the traditional ways of healing. I went also into the alternative ways of healing. Everything looked great. I was in remission in November 2020, and in May 2021, the cancer was back. And I employed one simple tactic to it: positive affirmations. I decided that I was no longer even using the word cancer because, some people would say the universe doesn't understand the word no or not. Um,
Mhm.
but I turn it into, I live a long and healthy life. I am healthy. Same desired outcome, but a different vibrational sentence. And within 30 days, cancer was gone. You don't detect it anywhere in my body. I'm healed, and miracle, I guess some people would say. But you tell me, right? So if we have the innate ability to heal ourselves through positive affirmations, different vibrational
Mm.
energy, and we now have a lot of research in the field of epigenetics, I think there's something there. And, that's what I'm encouraging anyone that is, coming to me in my private practice or just reading the book, that we have way more power than we're giving ourselves credit for. And it's time to take that power back.
So that's what exactly means that we ourselves are the placebo here, placebo effect.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I would say, um, a lot of this now is measurable, repeatable, scalable transformation. And it really starts with this intersection of nervous system regulation and energetic coherence. That ultimately, I would say, you know, equals your cellular regeneration.
Mm. Wow, interesting, Samarth.
We could dive into this probably for hours. You can tell I'm pretty passionate
Exactly.
about it, but I'm just trying to leave your listeners with, some snippets of sorts. And obviously, if you're interested to learning more about this, read my book, Becoming the Rocket Shaman. I'm sure you'll probably talk about this for a second, but it's out on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or ebook. And definitely my journey I hope will be one that inspires others that are in the same situation, that were left behind by the system and feel like, they hit the end of the road. My message is absolutely not. You have way more power and you can heal yourself.
Absolutely, I agree. I'll definitely mention the details in the show notes. And if our listeners they would also like to connect with you, Simon, what will be the best way?
Yeah, connect with me either on social media at the Rocket Shaman or my website, therocketshaman.com. If you go to therocketshaman.com/subscribe, there's a free gift waiting for you as well. There is an option to choose the energy audit that I talked earlier. It's a document to just help you take note of all the different energetic distractions you may undergo during the day, and a quick tool. So it's my free gift for everyone that's listening and interested in downloading. So just hop onto my website.
Wonderful. I'll add this as well to the show notes. And Simon, I think you have really reminded us that we are also the prescription, not only the placebo, but we're also the prescription. And in a world which is obsessed with doing more, faster, and better, healing might look like doing less, listening deeper, and remembering who we were before we forgot ourselves. So, thank you so much for bringing this up.
Oh, thank you for having me. Yes, absolutely.
So, to all the listeners, if something Simon said stirred something within you, pause. Don't just scroll away, sit with it, maybe even re listen. And Simon's book, Becoming the Rocket Shaman, is out now. And trust me, it's not just for spiritual seekers, it's for anyone who's ever whispered that there has to be more than this. So, thank you to everyone for tuning into this episode of BizBlend. I urge all of you to stay curious, to stay whole, and overall stay human. This is BizPlan, and this is your host, Sana, signing off. Thank you.